Welcome to Broadway Drumming 101. My guest today is Elena Bonomo. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And it's very nice to finally meet you. I've heard a lot about you, and I'm looking forward to hearing your story.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I've heard a lot about you as well, so I'm very excited to finally get a chance to chat.
Uh oh.
All good things, all good things.
That Clayton, man, that motherfucker owes me some money.
That's what they say about me.
So, you are now the drummer for the hit Broadway musical Six, which I've seen bits and pieces of. I haven't seen the whole thing yet, but it looks like so much fun. I want to just start. How did you get involved in that show?
Well, yeah, Six is a super fun show. I absolutely have a blast playing it every night. And I first became involved when we did the show in Cambridge at ART, and that was in the summer of 2019. I think we did about a 2 month run there at ART. It's the American Repertory Theater, part of Harvard University in Cambridge. They have a lot of shows that do pre Broadway or early regional runs there. Like Waitress actually started at ART. So, yeah, it's a cool theater where they do pre Broadway runs. So, we did about 2 months there in Cambridge, and then we did another 5 weeks in St. Paul, Minnesota. That was around the holidays in 2019. Then we had a little break, and then we came to Broadway in early January 2020. And then we all know what happened after that.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Open on March 11th.
We were going to open on the 12th, March
Damn.
12th, 2020. And that's the day that everything shut down.
Damn. I think I remember hearing about that later, and I'm like, man, it's like not a good feeling when you're like so amped to go, and you're like, oh, no, you guys aren't coming in at all.
Yeah, that was intense. We found out about 3 hours before our opening night. Like we were supposed to have maybe a 6 o'clock or 6:30 show because it's always like a little earlier on openings, and we found out at about 3 o'clock.
Oh no.
It was crazy. I was getting ready for the show. I was getting my makeup done, and my parents were on their way to the city to meet me. And I was like, it looks like it might not happen. Oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on. Like, everyone's sending emails and texting each other at the same time. And finally, Governor Cuomo made the call that all the shows were going to shut down that night. It was really intense,
All right, let's talk about some good stuff. You
but good
said
stuff first. Yeah.
Cambridge, Massachusetts. We're
Hmm.
gonna we're gonna get to that area in a minute. Where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Westchester, New York.
Oh, really?
Yep, just about an hour north of the city. I grew up in Cortland Manor, which is a small town between Croton and Peekskill off the Hudson Line train.
Yes.
And yeah, I was pretty much there my whole life until I went to college.
And what was your first musical memory?
Ooh, that's a good question. First musical memory, maybe, yeah, it's probably my grandma Jean. She plays the piano, and she had a beautiful upright piano in her basement in her house in New Jersey. And as a kid, me and my family would go there, and grandma would just always play stuff on the piano. Like after we'd eat dinner, or, we'd have a little like hangout time, and she would just play some songs downstairs. And I just thought it was so cool. I was just so drawn to music in general, and I always wanted to sit next to her, and I always asked her if she could teach me how to play some things. So I think that's probably like the very first time I was really drawn to music.
What was the thing that brought you to drums?
So I have an uncle and a cousin in my family who both play drums. They had their drums set up in their houses, and whenever we went over for the holidays or just to visit, I just asked if I could go downstairs and play them. And I just thought, I don't know why, I just thought the drums were so cool and so much more fun than the piano at the time. So I was just drawn to it. I was like, oh, this looks so fun. Can I please just try it? And they'd teach me how to play a couple little things. And it just always felt like fun to me rather than work. Fast forward a couple of years, I ended up taking piano lessons, but my parents, like every other kid, always had to force me to practice. Like, okay, Elena, get your 20 minutes in. Come on, go downstairs. And I was like, I don't want to. But then eventually, I ended up getting a little more serious about the drums, and I actually wanted to practice because it didn't feel like work. It just felt like fun. So I think that's even to this day what keeps me drumming. It's just always fun for me.
They bought you a drum set.
Yes, yes, I got a drum set for Christmas when I was about 9 years old.
For
I
so
didn't think I
long.
was gonna get it. No, it was actually, well, yeah, it was like a little more than just a kid's drum set, but it wasn't like a professional drum set. But it was perfect for little 9-year-old me. And I didn't think I was gonna get it. We were like looking through music catalogs and stuff, and they're like, okay, what do you want to ask Santa for this year? Because at the time, I'm a young kid, still writing my Christmas list to Santa, and I asked for a drum set and a snowboard actually in the same year.
Wow.
And so we woke up that Christmas morning and there was a little, like, cute little snowboard, like, under the tree. And I was so excited. I thought that was the big present. Like, oh my gosh, Santa brought me a snowboard. This is amazing. And then we went downstairs. My family used to set up a little, like, nativity scene for Christmas. So Christmas morning, we put little baby Jesus in the manger. So we went downstairs to go do that. And there was a drum set
That's
up.
so cool.
And it was just the best surprise. I had absolutely no idea that that was
Really?
happening. No idea.
Wow.
Yeah. I think they have it on video too. Like, that would be a really fun thing to dig out to see my reaction to getting a drum set for the first time. But it was just so amazing. My mind was blown and I just ran to it and started playing, and
Really?
I just thought it was the coolest thing ever.
So when you were 9 years old when you first got your set,
Yeah.
did you start just practicing on your own, just playing beats, or did you play along to music? What did you do to practice?
My uncle Joe, he's a drummer, percussionist. He subbed on Broadway like a while ago, and now he plays a lot of regional theaters and stuff. He helped me with some of my first drum lessons. He wrote some lessons for me in this little manuscript book and just gave me my first steps in drumming. He taught me all the basics, all the techniques. At the time, as a 9-year-old girl, I was obsessed with the Backstreet Boys.
They better than NSYNC to you?
I really liked both of them, but I think ultimately I was more of a Backstreet Boys person. And so, he asked me, like, okay, let's try to play along with the song. What do you want to play? And I was like, I just want to play a Backstreet Boys song. So he put the CD into the little stereo in our basement and blasted it because it's just like a normal, like, everyday stereo system. It's not anything intense. And I played along to Larger Than Life by the Backstreet Boys.
Oh wow, okay.
Like, just a nice simple rock beat, and it was perfect. It was so much fun. That was officially the first song that I ever played on the
Really?
drums.
That's interesting.
It's yeah, yeah, it's interesting.
So did you take drum lessons from him or did you go to another teacher?
Yeah, so ultimately for the first year or so, he helped me out a little bit. Nothing like super regular, but whenever he came over, he'd give me a couple pointers. And I think my parents just wanted to see if I was actually into it and if I wanted to really pursue it for real. So then a couple years later, I think I was probably about 11. That's when I asked to actually take private lessons because I just really loved playing the drums and I wanted to take that seriously. And my piano teacher also noticed, because I was still taking piano lessons at the time. I told her about the drums and about the drum set and how I really want to get into it. So she also pushed my parents to sign me up for lessons because she saw how passionate I was about it. So we ended up finding a teacher that was recommended by my middle school band teacher. He was a local teacher that taught everyone. And I stayed with him for a couple of years, all throughout high school.
I whatever happened to the snowboard?
The snowboard, I gave that up real quick. Yeah, no, it wasn't. Yeah, it
That
wasn't
that
my thing.
that thing stayed under the Christmas tree like the
Pretty
dress?
much, we used it in the backyard. It was like a toy snowboard. It wasn't something I could really take on the mountain, but we did it in the backyard as kids, and it was super. But ultimately, I ended up skiing a little bit more throughout my childhood. I wish I could go back to that, but now I'm a little bit too scared.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. I don't like the cold weather, but my girlfriend loves snow, and I want to find out what Tahoe's like because she's like,
Mm.
you gotta see. I gotta take you to Tahoe. You can be around Lake Tahoe and go to the mountains and go to a ski resort, but I don't want to ski because I don't want to twist my knee or
Yeah.
anything like that. Has that happened to you at all?
Luckily, I've never been injured while skiing, but I was doing that in high school. I think the last time I went skiing, I was probably like 18 or 19. And
Okay.
I haven't gone ever since because just now, as an adult, especially with a career in drumming, I'm just a little bit too scared that I might hurt myself because I've heard a lot of horror stories about people getting injured on the mountains. But you don't have to go really fast. You don't have to go on the crazy hills. So you can absolutely do it in a safe way. I don't know. I'm still a little scared. Maybe I'll go back to it at some point.
Are you good at it?
I used to be.
Really? You were on the diamond?
I was doing the diamonds. Yep. It was super fun. We used to go to Vermont every winter. My uncle has a house up there. So we used to go to Killington Mountain with my cousins, and that was super fun. But yeah, I just don't really do that anymore. It's also hard to find the time to do that. A weekend to drive 5 hours to Vermont and spend the money and go skiing. I don't even have ski gear anymore, but I do miss it. I really enjoyed it when I was younger.
Did you skateboard at all?
No, not at all. That
Mm.
was definitely too scary. I used to rollerblade. I really enjoyed rollerblading when I was younger, maybe like 8, 9.
You don't do it anymore?
Not anymore. No.
Would you
It would be an interesting sight to see me on roller skates now, or rollerblades.
could you go backwards and do all the dance steps that people do?
Oh no, no, I wasn't that good. I just liked to go fast. I just wanted to like zip down my driveway and into our street.
So you were taking lessons in junior high, and then you went to high school, and
Hmm.
you play in any musicals back then?
Yeah, so when I was in middle school, so I was in seventh grade, I actually played for my very first musical at the school, which was Anything Goes.
Hmm.
My teacher gave me the actual drum book for Anything Goes, and I was probably 12 at the time. I had been taking lessons for like a year, maybe. I brought that book to my teacher and also to my uncle who plays for a show. He was able to help me out and give me some pointers. I remember running the show at his house, which was super helpful. And I knew how to read music at the time just from taking piano lessons and from playing in the school band. I played percussion in the school band, and we also had a jazz band after school that I was in. I knew how to read music, and it was a pretty big endeavor to take on a whole musical as a kid. But my teacher trusted me, and I was able to do it, and it was a blast.
Did you play in any kind of Backstreet Boy cover bands in high school?
Wow, that would be amazing, but no, I didn't. But maybe now I'll start up a Backstreet Boys cover band. That's
Like
funny.
you could be in the band of the Backstreet Boys cover band.
But that would be
Would you
amazing.
would you ever have wanted to play for the Backstreet Boys? Like if you had a choice between Six and doing a Backstreet Boys residency in Las Vegas, what would you
Oh
rather do?
wow, wow, that's deep. I don't know. I'm really having a good time playing Six, so I think I think maybe I'll stay there. It would be cool to like meet them, maybe, but no, I have lots of artists that I'd love to play with one day. But yeah, you know what? We're gonna add Backstreet Boys back on that list because that would just be a full circle moment.
Exactly. And doing shows, you'll see that obviously people will come that you like when I was doing Ain't Too Proud when we were in Los Angeles, there would be
Hmm.
all kind of stars, very famous people that would come and be like, "Oh my God, that's Smokey Robinson, that's Jennifer Hudson, that's this person, that's that person." Because it was L.A. And then when in New York, there were a lot more people that came backstage, and I walked up, they were like, "LL Cool J's backstage." I'm like, "Oh my God,
Oh,
LL Cool J!" And you get to meet your heroes.
that's
One
so
day,
cool. One day, maybe.
I can't remember who was in the Backstreet Boys again.
I know, isn't that sad? I can't even remember either. Wow, two of them. Nick Carter.
Oh
He was like the
yes,
like the lead guy with the blonde hair.
yes,
And
that's
then
right.
the other guy, Brian. I can't remember his last name. That's really sad. I am not a true I sound like a horrible Backstreet Boys fan.
You are not part of the fan club.
Not anymore. That was many years ago.
High school, were you playing in any bands, or were you just doing musicals, or what were you doing musically?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So in middle school, I was taking the lessons, and then I got to play for the musicals that we did, like in seventh grade, and then again in eighth grade. We did Anything Goes first, and then Bye Bye Birdie the following year.
Mm.
It wasn't a full pit, by the way. It was me on drums, and then our choir director on piano who was music directing it, and so it was just a cute little drum and piano thing. Actually, I think for Bye Bye Birdie, our orchestra teacher played bass. Small little pit, but that was such an amazing experience. Like we played through the real show in high school. I played in my school band, I played in the school jazz band, I sang in choir, and I continued to take private drum lessons outside of school. In high school, I went to an actual music school after school. It was called Legond Music, based in Elmsford, New York. It's led by Charlie Legond and his wife, Roseanne. Charlie is an amazing saxophone player. He opened up this school many years ago. I went there for drum lessons, and I also got to play in some bands while I was there. We did, I don't know, all different kinds of bands, but I was in like a jazz Latin funk band as a 15-year-old, and then got a little bit more into it, and they helped me with my college prep stuff. They had the whole college prep program that I went to one summer where we learned a lot about ear training and sight reading and a little bit of harmony and got to play in more ensembles. So that was like a huge part of my childhood music education. And they really helped me get into college. I ended up going to Berklee in Boston. So again, Boston is such a special city to me. But yeah, I got some really good experiences in high school through Lagond Music School. We were able to play some gigs. They actually took some of their student bands to New York City to play at actual venues like the Bitter End and the Cutting Room. I got to play at the Bitter End when I was maybe 16 in the student band, but they had like a student showcase on a Sunday afternoon, and it was super fun.
You said you sang in the choir. Do you still sing?
Not much, no, but I'd like to get back into it because I think it would be a really helpful skill to have as a drummer to be able to sing backgrounds and stuff. But I'm always a little bit too self-conscious.
Oh, really? Now, the thing you mentioned in the very beginning about, is it your grandmother who played piano? Did you ever get a chance to play with her?
When I got good enough, she taught me how to play. Well, obviously, every kid learns chopsticks at some point. So we played, a little duet together. We played Heart and Soul, like, all the cute little songs that like everybody learns for the first time. But it was really special to be able to play that with my grandma. We don't play together anymore. She still plays a little bit of piano, but she has a hard time hearing now that she's getting older, so she doesn't play as much anymore. But I always try to get her to play a little something whenever I come to visit because I know that it's so important to her and it makes her really happy. So, yeah.
Interesting thing that I like to point out as far as people that are listening or watching, when you form a new musical, when you're in rehearsals, generally it's just you as the drummer and the pianist, music director. Now, you were doing that in high school with those two musicals, correct? You just kind of fell into it, and that's kind of somewhat of a basis for your career now. You didn't even really kind of know it. Back then, other than the musicals that you were doing, what were some of your drumming influences back then?
Back in high school, I loved listening to John Mayer, who I still love. John Mayer is one of those people that I'd drop everything to go on tour with. That would be amazing. So I was really into him for a while, and Steve Jordan, who played drums with him on Continuum, which is my favorite, or
I
at
love
least
that.
one of my favorite albums of all time. So I was really into that in high school.
Did you hear their? I'm sure you did that live album with Pino Palladino.
Yeah, the John Mayer Trio, the Try album. That was another one I was really into that in high school.
That first song, I think it's the first song on the record. Can't remember what song it is, but Steve Jordan just comes in with this crazy feel, and it's just the groove is just there, and he just stays there through the
Yeah.
whole thing.
He was like one of my biggest influences, especially back in high school. Like when I was taking lessons and playing in those like student bands, my teachers introduced me to his music, and I just thought it was so cool. I was just really drawn to his style, like just groove the whole time. And, I loved it. So I would play along to a lot of songs that he was on with John Mayer because I loved John Mayer. So yeah, he was a big part of my early drumming education.
And who? Steve Jordan, John Mayer. Who
Yeah, I
else?
really loved Jamiroquai when I was in high school. I played along to a lot of their stuff. And then also some of the more like rock things. Like in high school, I really liked Paramore.
Oh yeah.
So I played along to some of their songs. Maroon 5, I was really into Maroon 5 as a kid. Played along to their whole first album, Songs About Jane. I was loving that. I think I had a pretty wide spectrum of styles that I liked. Because I was also really into jazz. Like I was studying jazz a little bit at Lagond, getting ready to prepare for school. So they introduced me to some jazz stuff like, early Miles Davis and John Coltrane. And that's when I got into Max Roach and Philly Joe Jones. And they had me transcribing some of their solos and, like, okay, listen to this song and this trading floor passage, transcribe this whole thing. That was super fun. So I was really into just a little bit of everything.
What made you decide to go to Berklee?
I really wanted to go to Berklee because they didn't just do jazz. Like a lot of the schools that I was looking into at the time, so I guess Manhattan School of Music, SUNY Purchase, the New School, a lot of them were just strictly like jazz focused. And like I said, I just really liked playing everything. I liked playing for shows. I liked playing rock. I liked playing pop and funk. And I loved jazz too, but I didn't want to like just focus on that. So I felt like Berklee at the time would be a really good choice for me to have more of a contemporary music education. And I also really liked the idea of getting out of New York for a little bit and experiencing a new city that wasn't too far from home because Boston is only about 3 or 4 hours away. So everything about it was just so perfect for me at the time. And I really wanted to go there. So luckily, I did the audition and they helped me a lot all my teachers at school helped me a lot to prepare for it. But I ended up getting in and it was the most exciting day ever when I got that email that I got in.
And where Denard was one of your teachers there?
I actually never got to study with him, but he was there while I was there. He was in some of my jury performances. In my later years at Berklee, I definitely had to perform in front of him a couple of times, which was very nerve wracking.
So, for people that don't know, like myself, when you apply to Berklee and you want to study music and you're a drummer, what options do you have as far as academics? Is it like jazz performance, jazz studies, rock studies? Like, what exactly do you study, and what
Yeah,
the like academic goal?
it might have changed recently. I'm not too sure on like the current things that they're doing, but at least when I was there, you could, as a drummer, you could either major in performance or, Berklee had about, I think it was 12 other majors like music therapy, music education, music business, electronic production and design, recording and engineering, like any of those things. So you could still be a drummer, like that could be your principal instrument, but you could choose to major in any of those other things. I specifically just wanted to do performance because I wanted to play as much as possible. Oh, sorry, let me mute this. Yeah, I knew I wanted to do performance because I just wanted to play as much as possible. And I felt that that was the only major where I would have enough time to really shed and be in the practice room for many hours a day. A lot of my other friends who were doing other majors, I just felt like after the first year at Berklee, they kind of stepped away from their instrument and got deeper into their specific major, whether it was writing or recording or teaching. And I just didn't want to lose that. I didn't want to lose the drumming. So that's why I went with performance. It's not specifically focused in jazz or contemporary music or rock music or Latin. It's just kind of an overall, you can kind of choose what you want to do depending on who you decide to study with and which ensembles you decide to. If I wanted to make it all about jazz, I could have studied with only jazz teachers and played in only jazz ensembles. But instead, I chose to go with different teachers. I had some jazz teachers, some that were more interested or more focused on like fusion, funk stuff. And I got to play in all different types of ensembles at Berklee. I did some jazz ensembles, but I did, I don't know, all kinds of crazy things. There was like a jazz Latin funk ensemble and a Bob Marley ensemble. And what
Wow,
was the other
really?
one? Oh, the craziest one I was in was the microtonal music ensemble with a guitar player named Dave Fizinski. Yeah, he was,
Screaming Headless Torsos. That's
yeah,
man.
yeah, he was awesome. And that was a crazy ensemble. And we had it at 9 in the morning, like on Fridays, and it was just like way too much.
What was it called again?
The microtonal music ensemble. So all the guitar players, like they all played fretless instruments. So fretless guitars, fretless bass. It was crazy. We played a lot of Dave's like original music, and he just kind of taught us about microtonal music. I mean, again, as a drummer, like I'm not dealing with all of the notes that everybody else is dealing with, but he got me to experiment in some really cool ways, like, like dampen the drums and use different sticks and play on different surfaces besides just the drum head. Like, oh, let's see what the rims sound like. Let's see what the shells sound like. Let's see what other weird percussion instruments you could bring in. So that was really interesting.
Was there anything there that taught you the ins and outs of Broadway?
Yes, absolutely. So I got to play in the Berklee Musical Theater Orchestra, and we were the orchestra that played for all of the musicals that the school put up. From my freshman year, I really wanted to be in it, but they already had a drummer that was older than me, so I had to wait till that person graduated. And actually, it's a small world. That person was Giancarlo Ditrizio, who you might have crossed paths with. He's a drummer from Italy, and he subs all around town in New York. And it's just funny. He was the guy that was in the Berklee Musical Theater Orchestra before me. And once he graduated, another guy named Aaron Drescher, who was also in New York playing, he got to do it. And then once he left, I finally got to audition and be in the musical theater orchestra. So I got to play for a couple of shows. We did Legally Blonde at Berklee, and that was super fun. We did Godspell and Footloose.
Really?
So, yeah, those were all super fun. And that was the most professional experience I had had up to that point in my life. It was a full orchestra. We were putting on a real show with a music director, conductor for all of the shows. Actually, except Godspell, but the other two shows we actually had a stick conductor and had to follow them. And we didn't have a pit in our theater, but we played on stage. They kind of like covered us like in the back.
Mm.
But yeah, that was such an amazing experience. I got to do that at school and I got to work on some of that with my teachers. And, that was like the best prep I could have had for a career as a Broadway drummer because it's just everything you do in New York in real life. You listen to the show, you learn the show, you transcribe the fills or, the grooves that you hear on the recording that aren't exactly written like that because it's always slightly different. So like it was just the best experience.
So you graduating high school, you went to Berklee. When you got to Berklee, was it intimidating?
Oh yeah.
In what ways?
Well, first of all, there were so many amazing musicians there. I went from being one of the only drummers in my high school to being one of 100 and something drummers. So all of a sudden, it's like, okay, you're not that special anymore. Like everyone is doing this. Also, not to mention, I was usually always the only girl, especially playing drums. I wasn't the only girl playing drums at Berklee, but I don't know what the percentages are, but yeah, every time I went to a jam session or even just being in my ensembles, I was very used to just being the only girl with a bunch of guys, which was totally fine. But at the same time, like as an 18-year-old, when you get to school and you're like in this new scene in a new city, trying to make friends, and it's like I go to this jazz jam session in the basement of one of the dorms, and it's like me and a bunch of guys. And that was intimidating at first because I feel like a lot of people just didn't want to take me seriously. They're, like I'd want to go in and play. It's a jam session. It's finally my turn. And I don't think people ever like they didn't say anything mean to me or at least to my face, but I just like had a sense of like, oh, okay, Elena's up. Let's like play a blues, something real quick and easy. It just felt like that kind of vibe rather than like them trusting that I can actually hang and play. And I was like, no, I can do this. Like I'm here. Like I got into Berklee. I know I can do this. I know I can hang with you guys. So eventually I felt like I had to prove myself. So maybe that's what pushed me to work harder. I felt like I really had to practice a lot and study as hard as I can because I just wanted to be taken seriously. And eventually I feel like I earned everybody's respect and I got into the ensembles that I wanted to play in and I went to the jam sessions and I did a good job with my teachers and I felt like eventually I did prove myself, but it was scary first, getting there as an 18-year-old like, oh, here's what do I do, I hope they actually listen.
When you graduated, did you want to stay in the area? Did you want to go to New York, LA, Nashville, Seattle? Paris?
Paris. I ultimately wanted to go back to New York because I just really wanted to play on Broadway, but I also wanted to travel. I didn't want to go to New York immediately. I knew that I wanted to go on tour with a band or go on tour with somebody and see the world and do all of those fun things. So immediately after I graduated, I went on tour with this folk band called the Novel Ideas. They were based in Boston. They didn't go to Berklee, but I just knew them from being in the area, and they were auditioning drummers for their summer tour. They also planned to record a full length album in LA with the specific producer that they wanted to work with. So I thought that would be a really cool opportunity. Like, oh, I'll get to go on tour and record an actual album that's like not with students at school, like, a real album. And so I got into the band, and it wasn't anything like it wasn't a big deal, but we did everything on our own. We had a little van that we drove across the country in. We barely made any money. I think I made like $10 a day, like as a per diem. And that was tough because I had just graduated. I didn't have any money. And I was going on tour across the country with this band making like $10 a day. And it was rough.
$70 a week, baby. You're rich.
Yeah. Not to mention I still had to eat. So I'm joking about like it was fun. It was rough. Like we were not making money, but that wasn't for me, like I guess the goal at the time. Like I just needed the experience as any fresh grad does. So I got to play music with this band, and we got to tour all over the US, and we played at like small venues, and we ended up opening for this country singer named Rich O'Toole. I don't know his level of fame now. Like I honestly haven't listened to him since I was in that band. But it was an amazing experience. We got to open for this guy and like go everywhere, and then we ended up raising a bunch of money on Kickstarter so we could record this album with this producer that they wanted to work with. His name is Rick Parker. He worked with a band called Lord Huron, who we were all big fans of. So we got to go to LA and we recorded this album. We were in the studio for like 2 weeks, and that was such an amazing experience. And that was my first time seeing LA, seeing the whole country. And yes, like, we weren't really making money, but it was so fun at the time, like just living out of our van and sleeping on hotel floors because, we only had enough money to get one room for 5 people. We couldn't even split it up. So it's like we had 2 people per bed and then one on the cot, like it was intense, but it was a great experience overall.
What were your favorite cities?
At the time, I really loved Austin. It was my first time traveling through Austin, Texas, and I just thought that was so much fun with like all the food trucks and all the live music. That was just amazing. I really loved it there. And I also loved LA, seeing the Hollywood sign and recording in our studio, and also lots of really good food in LA too. I'm a big foodie person, so whenever I'm on tour, I'm always thinking about restaurants that I can try. I also really love Chicago. Again, for the food. I had to try deep dish pizza, and I got to do that for the first time when I toured with the band in Chicago, and that was a blast.
Did you go to the Wiener Circle?
I don't think so.
The Wiener Circle, I think it's called the Wiener Circle. It's a hot dog restaurant. But you go in there, and if you don't order like quickly or the right way, they will yell at you. It's typical hot dogs, but they have this shtick where these black women are behind the counter. And they're like, "Are you ready to order, motherfucker?" And they like they curse you out. It's
Oh
the funny. I'm
no.
gonna send you a video of their thing. It's a Chicago like legendary place, but it's not really a foodie thing, but it's more of an experience thing. But I was gonna ask you
Yeah.
if you like New York pizza as opposed to Chicago pizza better.
Yes, 100%.
Really?
I'm a true New Yorker. Although, no, I appreciate deep dish. Like, I appreciate it and I enjoy it, but I just feel like it's not pizza. It's like lasagna, kind of.
There's a place in Soho that my daughter, who is a big foodie too, she's in culinary school.
Cool.
She brought me down to this place called I don't know, it's Soho Pizza. It's like it's thick. It's just on the square sheets. I don't know if you've been there yet, but that's really good pizza.
I'll have to add that to my list.
Yes, New York City pizza is good. And there are times where I don't really like pizza that much, but there are just times where I just want a slice of pizza.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite slice in New York?
Ooh, I don't know if I have a favorite slice, but I have a favorite like pizza place in my neighborhood actually. It's called Tofino. It's like a Neapolitan style pizza place
Mm.
and it's amazing. It's my favorite. Like that's my favorite type of pizza, just like, individual Neapolitan like wood-fired pizzas. It's the
Mm.
best. I could eat that every day.
Do you have a favorite food? I know this is not part of drumming, but I'm
Uh,
just curious.
yeah. No, honestly, like the second part of my identity is food. Like people know me as like
Really?
Elena the drummer and Elena the foodie, mostly with Italian foods. Like everyone knows me as the person that like either always eats pasta or always brings pasta or cooks for people. So yeah, I would say lasagna. Definitely one of my favorite foods.
So,
It's just so hearty. So
what
good.
would you know? Every time I speak to a musician or a person in general, the more I find out, the more interesting they are.
Yeah.
And I go off on tangents. So, in the future, the last person I spoke to, we had like a thing where I said, "Well, tangent alert." I'm just gonna
Oh
put it
no.
up there.
Tangent
we're
alert.
Yeah, we're gonna go
Pizza.
off going to go off on a tangent here. So tell
Yeah.
me what got you into becoming a foodie and cooking and just learning about different foods. What was the thing that piqued your interest?
Hmm. I don't know like specifically what got me into it, but I don't know. I've always loved food. Like I've always loved trying new things. I was never a picky eater. Even as a kid, my parents were giving me like linguine and clam sauce, and I was like, yes, love it. Give me more. I ate coffee ice cream as a 6 year old, like because I loved the flavor of coffee, and my parents let me have it. But I don't know. I've just always loved it. And in high school, I got to go to Italy for the first time. We did like a class trip there when I was about 16. And that I think that changed my life. I just loved everything about Italy. The food, the culture, the coffee, all the things that you can see, all the history. Like it was amazing and it was just so inspiring to me and I just loved everything about it. So I think when I came back home, I was like, "Oh, I'm so interested in learning more about food and about the Italian culture because it was just so inspiring to me. And my family is Italian. Both my parents, like both sides are Italian. Like my great grandparents and beyond were all from Italy.
Mm,
And so I'm like what, third generation American,
okay.
but the Italian culture is still very present in my family and like I grew up eating lots of pasta on Sundays, at my grandma's house and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, food has just always been a big part of my life. And even now, as an opening night present, my girlfriend bought me a pasta machine from Italy. And I was like, that's the coolest gift ever. And during the pandemic, we ended up making some pasta together because that was for the opening night that never actually happened in March 2020.
Wow.
So yeah, we got to make pasta together. And during the pandemic, we cooked so much food and it kept me alive.
So if somebody gives you a bottle of ragu, you look at it and then you just throw it on the ground and say
Exactly. I
no.
said, no, what is this?
So you graduated from Berklee.
Hmm.
You did the tour with what's the name of the band again?
The novel ideas.
The Novel Ideas. Yes. You came back after making $10 a day.
Yep,
You put all that money away into a 401k.
exactly.
Now you just retired. So you got back and you were in the Boston area.
What happened after I left the band? Oh, well, so basically, I decided to leave the band. Like, they were going to continue, they were going to do some more touring and stuff. And I was just, again, I was like, I love it. It was an amazing experience. I don't know if this is for me because I had been with them for maybe about 8 months at that point. And it was an amazing experience, but it wasn't super sustainable because we weren't really making money. I was fresh out of school. I felt like I should probably get a job or do something. Like, I don't know if I could do this forever. It just wasn't sustainable. And a lot of them also had day jobs. They were a little bit older than me. Some of them were able to work their day jobs from the road. They were actually based in Boston and they were doing other things. And I was kind of just like, I don't really have a place. Like, I didn't have my own place. I was technically still living in my parents' house, but not really because I was living in their van on the road, you know. So I just felt like it just didn't feel grounded and it felt very unstable. So I decided to leave. But so after I left the band, I reached out to some of the cruise ship companies that I had auditioned for back in school. And it turned out there was an opening for a drummer on one of the Holland America cruise ships. And then I thought that would be a really great way to see more of the world, to make a little bit more money, and to get just more experience. So ultimately, I left the band to do a cruise contract, and that was about 2 months. And my first contract was in, where was it? Oh, it was in well, we started in Florida, and then we went to the Bahamas and then Panama Canal. We went like in a big circle every week, some of the islands in between. And then we ended up going across the ocean to Spain.
Wow.
Yeah, that took a whole week, I believe. Yeah, it took a whole week to get from, I guess, Florida up to Spain. And then we went around Spain and then we finished in Italy. And that was the end of my contract. Yeah, I keep going back to Italy. I guess that place is very special to me. But that was an incredible experience, like working on the cruise ship. I got to see the world, you know, not just the country. And so I loved that so much. And so I ended up doing a couple more contracts with Holland America Cruise Lines over the next 3 years. It was
What
amazing.
what were you doing musically on those cruise lines?
So I was in I guess, the house band. So we were responsible for doing many different things on the ship, like playing lounge sets, like, you know, like a happy hour light jazz set. We did some ballroom dancing because Holland America is mostly an older crowd and they really appreciate, I don't know, ballroom dancing. So we had to learn. I had to learn like so many different styles. Like, let's learn bolero and a cha-cha and salsa and foxtrot and like a waltz and all these words that I had never really heard before. So again, had to get like deep into those styles to fulfill the ballroom dance crowd. But we also had to play in the main theater on the ship, which holds about 800 people. We played for the shows on the ship. They weren't full-on Broadway musicals. They were mostly just like 35-minute musical review type shows. That's the first time that I had to use headphones and play with a click track and do that whole thing, which was an amazing experience. I didn't get to do that in college, so that was my first time like reading charts and playing to a click and putting on a show. We also had to play with different guest entertainers. These were people that would just fly onto the ship for like a day or two and do their show, and then they'd leave. And that was also an amazing experience because we were sight reading. Like they'd come with their charts for their show, and we'd have a 2 hour rehearsal at some point in the afternoon. We'd have to like read their stuff and then have a dinner break and then play two shows at 8 and 10. And that's like, again, such a nice, like real life New York experience. It like totally just set me up for a career in New York because all of those skills were things that I didn't necessarily do in school, but they were so helpful and just it was such a great experience.
After the cruise ship experience, did you move to New York?
Yeah, so in between contracts, I would go back to my parents' house and I was based in New York. During that time in between contracts, I was meeting different drummers. I got to sub on my very first off Broadway show, which was Cagney at the time. I was playing first at the York Theater and then again at the West Side Theater. I got that opportunity because of Larry Lelly, who I'm sure you've crossed paths with. But Larry has been one of my biggest Broadway mentors since I was in college. We actually met when I was at Berklee through a mutual friend. I got to shadow him. He was playing for the producers at that time in How to Succeed in Business. He was playing for that. So I got to shadow him like during one of my college breaks, you know, like winter break. Like, okay, I'm in New York for like 2 weeks. So Larry and I were just in touch for a couple of years. And he was such an amazing mentor and teacher to me. And basically, he just gave me the opportunity to sub for him at Cagney because he said this would be a really good first show. It's not like super high stakes because it's off Broadway. It's a smaller theater, it's a smaller band. Everything about it was like this could be a really good like first show to throw you in on. So luckily he gave me that chance. He trusted me, and I was so nervous because that was my first professional show. But I did it, and it went well, and they said I can come back, and I ended up subbing for him at that show for 2 years on and off.
So, what did you do to prepare for that?
So, just like what everyone does when they shadow a show. Like I went to shadow him many times, probably at least like 4 or 5 times, especially because it was my first show and I wanted to make sure I was playing it exactly like him. I recorded him. The show was, they didn't have like AVMs or anything. It was all just like acoustic. So I brought my Tascam recorder and put it down and recorded the show. He gave me a copy of the book. I listened to that recording and studied it for, I don't remember the timeline. It must have been at least a month, probably 3 weeks or a month. And I just practiced and I transcribed all his drum fills, all of his little things that he did, like little accents and little tasteful things that weren't necessarily in the music, but things that he just did because I wanted it to sound exactly like him. And I knew the show in and out. I wanted to make sure that I knew every single thing and that I wasn't like unclear about any section. So once I got to that point, I knew that, I'd be ready to sub. And yeah, I got to play the first show and it was awesome. Again, it was like so nervous. I couldn't believe that it was like my first professional gig, and I probably messed up some things here and there, but ultimately it went well enough for them to invite me back. And it was amazing. It was just so much fun.
I talked to a couple of people, and as you know, it's incredibly stressful subbing a show, whether it's Broadway or off Broadway.
Yeah.
A friend of mine said it's like a 2.5 hour heart attack.
Oh, yeah. That I relate to that.
Another friend said that it's the most stressful thing he's ever done in his entire life. Subbing on a show because you are pretty much the engine of the show, and so much is reliant on what you do. And if you screw up, it can cause a lot of problems.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of weight on your shoulders. Successfully subbed at that show, and did word get around? And were you able to parlay that into other opportunities?
Yeah, yeah. So the good thing about Cagney was that I got to meet so many different people in that band. I met the music director and the reeds player and the bass player, and then all of their subs because I was there pretty often. So I got to meet a lot of new people, and maybe I don't remember the exact chain of events, but it's possible that like someone recommended me to this other person for a reading for something, or someone worked with me on Cagney, and then a few months later they ended up on another project that I was also in. Like, so everyone just like word gets out eventually, whether it's with the other people in the band or the music director or even or Larry's other subs, whoever. And ultimately, like if you keep doing a good job, then word gets out and then people want to hire you for other things. So basically just I kept meeting new I kept meeting more drummers. I just wanted to meet as many people as possible because I knew I wanted to keep doing this. I loved playing for shows. I loved subbing. I wanted to have my own chair eventually, but I just loved that scene. So I met new people and shadowed them and met people for coffee and asked them all the questions, and then it took a long time. Like it's not like things happened overnight. It's not like I subbed for Cagney and now I have my own chair for six. That was like 2015 and now it's 2021. So basically in between when I first subbed for Cagney and now it was just meeting people and playing for workshops and taking every gig and playing cabaret shows and meeting different artists and different music directors, trying to do a good job on all of those things because you never know who you're going to meet, right? Like you never know who's going to be on that gig, whether it's with you in the band or someone that's in the audience watching the gig. You just never know who you're going to cross paths with. So basically, I just had all these different experiences, like subbing for Cagney, but also I think I was playing for some regional shows at that time too. Like I played for a show at Yorktown Stage. I played for Footloose and Les Mis in this cute little theater like upstate in Cornwall, New York. Each run was like 2 weeks long, but I just kept trying to do all those things too because I remember back in college our teacher Eric Stern, who I think has kind of retired from the Broadway scene, but he's a teacher at Berklee now, Broadway music director for many, many years. He told us to just take every gig you possibly can. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about how big or how small it is or where it is. Just like get as many experiences under your belt as you possibly can because you never know who you're going to meet. So I tried to do that. I played for regional shows. I played for like a random show at the Gallery Players in Brooklyn for like 2 weeks. And then eventually word spreads and you cross paths with these people again on other projects. And yeah, you get more gigs eventually. So basically, in that path of me just wanting to sub for shows and meet people, I got to meet Rich Mercurio, who was the drummer for Waitress. We met for coffee. This was in 2017, early 2017. A mutual friend introduced me to him, and I just wanted to hang and just meet him because I was a huge fan of Waitress and of Sarah Bareilles too. So we got coffee, and he wanted to know a little bit more about me. And he said ultimately they were looking for people for the Waitress tour. And is that something I might be interested in? Because at the time, I think they were looking to have an all female band, which they didn't end up having, but it was a mostly female band, which was really cool. So we got coffee, and then he invited me to his studio. He wanted to hear me play some songs. I was so nervous. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm actually going to play the songs from Waitress for the actual drummer of Waitress. This is so nerve wracking. I was like freaking out. But I did my best to listen to all the material, and he didn't give me the music. He didn't give me the book. I just had to figure it out. I learned the songs. It was 3 or 4 songs from the show, and I got a practice room and was shedding as much as I possibly could. And I went to his studio, and he recorded me playing the songs, and he ended up showing that to the music director and then ultimately Sarah Bareilles. And then I didn't hear from them for like a long time. And I thought, oh my gosh, I blew it. They hate me. I did such a bad job. I didn't hear from him until about July. But then on the 4th of July, 2017, he texted me, hey, what do you think about subbing for the show in 2 weeks on Broadway? And I was like, oh my God, seriously? Like, no way. And like, that was the first time I had like my first Broadway subbing opportunity because he said they were interested in me for the tour and they wanted me to play it on Broadway to see if I'd potentially be a good fit. So it was kind of like my audition. Like playing on Broadway was my audition for the tour, which is crazy. Yeah, that was a wild experience.
So interesting. Imagine if Steve Jordan said, you know what, John Mayer needs a drummer for his upcoming tour, and you have to play John Mayer stuff for Steve Jordan.
That's just like, I can't even comprehend that. Like, that would be crazy.
You had to learn the show in 2 weeks, or you already knew the show already?
So, luckily, just from being a fan of the show, I was already very familiar with the music. I listened to the cast recording. I listened to Sarah Bareilles' recording, like, because she did like an album of like songs from Waitress, like with her singing them. So I was really familiar with the songs from the show. I just didn't know, like, I at that point didn't have the drum book. I didn't know like the intricacies of the show. So once I knew that I was going to be subbing for it, he sent me the music. He sent me the board recording. I had a Dropbox to all the materials, and I pretty much just like didn't sleep for 2 weeks. Like that's how I remember it. I wanted it to be as close to his sound as possible. So again, I just like transcribed everything that I possibly could. All of his drum fills, all of his little intricacies, everything, and practiced all the time. Like I had gigs, like I was gigging that week too, and like I was busy, but I like after the gigs I went to my rehearsal space and practiced Waitress for like 2 hours. It was just like one of those, I feel like this always happens, like everything happens at the same time. Like you wait your whole life to play on Broadway, and it happens to be the same week that I'm playing for like a nymph show, like a reading of a new show, and then also like a concert at Green Room 42. Like everything happens at the same time. So I was like, how am I going to do this? But yeah, I ended up learning the show, and I practiced as much as I could. And I got to play. I remember it was a Wednesday, July 17th, because that date was just so special to me. I'll remember it forever. And yeah, I got to play 2 shows that day. He put me in for the matinee and for the evening.
Wow.
and my parents got to see it. They were so excited, like, oh my gosh, you're finally making your Broadway debut. This is amazing. And it was just a blast. It was so much fun. And I got to meet Sarah Bareilles like that day. Well, I got to meet her before that while I was shadowing the show. I forgot to mention that, of course, I was shadowing the show like many, many times. And actually, by this time the summer came along, Rich wasn't playing because he was on a leave of absence. Like he was on tour with
Little
someone,
Steven.
probably, or potentially Idina Menzel, but I think it was Little Steven. So Eric Halverson was taking over his leave. So Eric actually helped train me for the big day. And he was so helpful and so amazing. And I got to shadow Eric a bunch. And I played the 2 shows that day. And I guess it went well. And they offered me the tour,
And
which was amazing.
when did the tour go out?
The tour went out in September. So it was about like 2 months after that. So we started rehearsals in September.
Okay.
And then we left late September.
How long did it run?
So the whole tour, the first national tour, ran for almost 2 whole years.
Wow.
I was on it for the first 13 months. I wanted to stay at least a full year to like put in the work, say that I did a Broadway tour, and it was so amazing. And again, just like such an incredible experience being able to travel all over the country and play music that I really love. I love Sarah Bareilles' music. I love the show. But after about a year, I kind of felt like I kind of want to go back to New York and be on the scene again. Like, I don't know if I want to be on the road with the same show for another full year. Like, for me at the time, it just felt like I would get more out of coming back to New York and being on the scene here. So that's what I did. I chose to leave. And I think for me, it was the right decision because I was able to come back to New York and I ended up playing for an off Broadway show. Which was actually really cool because I got to like originate the book for an off Broadway show this time around, which I had never done before that. That was for a show called The Hello Girls. We did that. That was at Prospect Theater Company on 59 East 59th. So I got to originate an off Broadway show and we ended up recording a cast album. And all of that was just such a great experience. I was so glad I got to do something else like in town. But playing on tour with Waitress was such an amazing experience. I made so many great friends that I'm still in touch with to this day, and they're still some of my best friends. And it was amazing.
So the Hello Girls, I looked up a little bit of that. That was a story about women in World War One.
Yeah, it was about the women who were telephone operators in World War One.
Ah, wow.
Yeah, so they were communicating and translating and plugging in, the switchboards and, plugging in all the wires and stuff. And yeah, they were like the first women telephone operators in World War One. So the musical is about them and their journey. And it was really fun. The music was completely different from Waitress. It was more of a traditional Broadway, like old school type of sound, but with some modern twists to it.
Did that run for long, and did that lead you to the next show, off Broadway show? I guess A Strange Loop.
Yeah, so the Hello Girls, it was a limited run. It ran for about 2 months. It did really well. Like it had really good reviews and good responses. After that, we recorded the album in about February, I think, because the show closed in December. We recorded the album in February. I played for a workshop of a B-52s show like in January. At this point, I was like just trying to get back into the scene, like because I had been away for a year. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do all these different things. And luckily, people were hiring me. Yeah, that workshop. And then as I was on that workshop, I got the call from the contractor at Playwrights Horizons, who was putting the band together for a new show called A Strange Loop, which ended up happening from May through July of 2019. Yeah, which feels like last year, but also there's
Yeah, I
that
know.
whole pandemic year in between. So basically in between the Hello Girls and Strange Loop, I was just freelancing, playing different one-off gigs like 54 Below or Green Room 42 or doing a 2-week workshop of a show, like things like that. I was also subbing for Be More Chill on Broadway.
Marcus Walls, correct?
Yep, for Marcus. Yep, he's amazing. So I was learning his book while I was getting ready for Strange Loop, and I got to sub there while I was on Strange Loop. So that was exciting. But yeah, Strange Loop again was like very successful. It had really good reviews. We were sold out every night. It was such an amazing experience. And it was a limited run. It was only going to run for the summer. They weren't trying to extend it. But yeah, we got to record that cast album at some point during the summer. So that was super exciting. One of my best friends was in the band with me. So that was really fun too. Like that we got to work together every night. Yeah, it was a really, really great time.
So, what is a taste of things to come?
A Taste of Things to Come. Oh, totally forgot about that one. That was another show that I got to sub for, kind of around when I was doing Cagney. Barbara Merjan, she's this amazing drummer that I got to meet. How did I meet Barbara? I think she's from Ossining, which is very close to where I grew up. So a mutual friend kind of put us in touch, like, oh, you guys should connect. And we connected over coffee, exchanged info, and hung out a little bit. And she ended up asking me to sub for her for that show. So that was like kind of around the same time as Cagney. And another workshop I was doing at the time called Chick Six, which is now it turned into a new show called Super You, the musical, which I've done a couple of workshops for, and they're trying to bring that to Broadway. I don't know when that's going to happen, but that's just a cool project that I've been involved with for the last couple years. So everything was kind of like happening at the same time.
This is all in 2019.
So Taste of Things to Come was actually, I think, 2016,
Okay.
and the early workshop of Chick Six was 2016. Cagney ended up going through the rest of 2016, and then early 17 was when I met Rich and got to start Waitress, and then the tour was 17 and 18. Hello Girls was end of 18. Strange Loop was 19. I'm like thinking of it like a timeline of my calendar. Like, how did this all work?
Right, right. And then
Yeah.
2019 is when things started rolling with your current show, correct?
Yes. So that pretty much happened right after A Strange Loop. The contractor in Boston at the American Repertory Theater was looking to put together the band for the show, and they wanted an all-female band because we were on stage, and the show is an all-female cast too, which is pretty unique. So that contractor reached out to some of her connections in New York at the time, and then that drummer recommended me to the contractor because I happened to be right there. And then he was like, oh, yeah, great. Yeah, call Elena. So that was amazing. And she ended up hiring me for the gig in Boston. And I left New York for the end of the summer and got to do Six for about, what was it, 6 weeks or 2 months, something like that. This is so fun. And that's pretty much how I like started with this whole Six journey, because luckily they kept me along for the ride. You know, we did the next regional run of the show in St. Paul, Minnesota at the Broadway Theater, and then we came to Broadway.
When did you start rehearsals in Broadway?
We started rehearsals for Broadway in January 2020.
Oh man.
Yeah. And we
Well, I
started
guess
our
that
first
makes sense.
previews, like tech dress rehearsal, first previews in around Valentine's Day, so like February 14th, 2020. And then we had up until March 12th, because that was supposed to be our opening night. We had about 5 weeks of previews, and then we were going to open on the 12th. And then the pandemic struck. Yeah, big sigh.
Yeah. Okay. I keep telling people I'm not going back to 2020.
No.
I don't care how bad people want to and want to go. Nope, not gonna happen. But
Yeah.
I don't necessarily really want to because I'm just curious. What did you do during our downtime?
So the first 2 months, I was basically moving. I was busy moving into my new apartment, this current apartment. My girlfriend and I signed a lease together for April 1st, 2020. And this was like, we signed it like a month in advance. So it was on like March 1st before everything started blowing up. And then, yeah, of course, Broadway shuts down on the 12th. Schools shut down a few days later. Everything seems to be really bad. And we're like, oh no, how are we going to move? How are we going to hire movers? How are we going to like do this while everything is shutting down? So we tried to ask our landlords if we could get into this place a little bit earlier. And luckily it was available. We still had to pay for the 2 weeks, that were early, but We were able to get in. We got movers. It all worked out. And so for the first 2 months, honestly, I was like a little bit relieved to just take a break from the show because tech and rehearsals, like that is a very intense schedule. Everyone was really tired. At the time, we thought we'd be off for like 2 weeks because everyone was like, oh, we'll be back on April 1st or April 14th or whatever it was. So we're like, okay, it's a month. It's fine. We could use the rest. We'll get back to it in April. And then April turns to May, and May turns to June 1st, and June turns to September 1st, and September turns to January, and they just kept pushing it back for all of Broadway, as we all know. So a lot of the pandemic was just like a waiting game. Like, oh my gosh, when are we coming back? Are we going to come back? Like, what's going to happen? There are just so many questions. But anyway, most of the pandemic, I ended up teaching. I did a lot of online lessons. I ended up building up our home studio with my girlfriend because she's a sound engineer. So she already had a lot of gear. We ended up ordering some more gear so we can mic up the drums, soundproof the room. We built some panels and like made it all nice. I ended up teaching a lot of online lessons, and we ended up recording on a couple sessions from home. And so that kept us really busy just between the home recordings and the teaching.
That's
And
great.
then a lot of cooking, of course. Sourdough, banana bread, pasta. So that was like honestly most of 2020, just like cooking, recording from home, watching a lot of TV, and waiting to hear about Broadway.
Do you watch a lot of cooking shows? Food Network?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Our favorite show is Top Chef
Mm.
with Padma Lakshmi. I don't know if you know who she is, but she's a celebrity chef and host of different cooking shows. And yeah, she's amazing. So we spent a lot of time watching Top Chef and Chopped. We love Chopped on Food Network.
So on these, you started rehearsing like everyone else did, and now you're back. You have your show now, and
Mm-hmm.
you need subs. What do you look for when hiring subs for your show?
So there are many things that I look for. First, I want to make sure that people are comfortable playing to a click track, which many people take for granted. Not everyone is familiar with performing to a click. That's a different skill set that you don't really have a chance to prepare for until you just have to do it. So, looking for people that are familiar with playing with a click, familiar with using in ears, because we all use in ear monitors, not over the ear headphones, because we're visible on stage. So that's a thing that people maybe aren't used to. I'm looking for people that are comfortable playing pop rock music, like groove based, like heavy 2 and 4 backbeat kind of stuff. This is not a jazz show. This is not like a free improvisational whatever. This is like straight up groove based pop music. So
Like
I'm looking for people that are familiar with that type of style.
like the Backstreet Boys.
Like the Backstreet Boys. It all goes back to the Backstreet Boys. Exactly. That prepared me for Six.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Backstreet Boys, for my. You're gonna get a like an award one day. You're gonna be on the Tony Awards.
That's so
I'd like
funny.
to thank the Backstreet
I
Boys.
want to thank the Backstreet Boys. Yeah.
So, sorry, tangent.
Tangent alert. No, but all of those things are just super important. And also, I'm looking for people that are experienced with electronics because I have a lot of electronics in the show. I use the Roland SPDSX drum pad with some additional triggers that are plugged into it. It's actually a fully electronic drum set that I'm using because the band is on stage. So they wanted like ultimate control of volume. But I'm using real cymbals. So it's actually a cool hybrid setup. I'm using the Sabian FRX series cymbals, which they're not low volume cymbals, but they're just like frequency reducing. They have a bunch of little holes all around the bell of the cymbal, and they just help to cut out a lot of those crazy high piercing tones and just make it more enjoyable for people that are like on stage so it's not overwhelming. So we found that between the FRX cymbals and the electronic kit, they have like a great balance in the house, and we have a great balance on stage because the whole band is on in-ears as well as the cast, which is pretty unusual for a Broadway show. The cast usually isn't on in-ear monitors. They usually have like a floor monitors and the speakers on the side of the stage so they can hear, but this is very different. So we just found that having every instrument go direct, like, there we don't have any amps on stage. Everything is just going direct and through people's ears, and that's the best way to control the volume. And we found that with the electronic kit and the Sabian cymbals, it actually sounds really good, and it's super fun to play.
What's the kit that you're using?
I'm actually using a drum set by a company called Drum Tech. They're based in Germany. I had never heard of them before I came onto the show, but they already had the kit picked out for me because the show had been running in London for a year or two on the West End. So we wanted to copy the setup that they had in the West End. So that's why when they brought it to the States, they ordered all the same stuff because they knew that it worked. So yeah, it's cool. It was my first time playing a kit like that. Every drummer is always like, "Oh, I don't know how I feel about electronic kits. Like, oh, I'd rather play a real one." We all know how that goes. But this kit actually feels and sounds so realistic. It's like the most realistic electronic kit that I've ever played. Sounds really good. So I'm lucky to be playing on it. I'm not complaining at all. It's actually really great.
Do you trigger the click tracks?
No, the music director triggers all the click stuff. So I'm only using my electronics for like single shot sounds. I'm actually not triggering any loops or anything either. It's just single shot sounds.
I saw a clip of you on Thanksgiving playing at the Macy's Day Parade. I was like, I gotta reach out to her.
Oh, cool.
Man, she sounds great.
Thanks for watching.
Were you playing that kit there, or was it just a kit that they rented and they put heads over?
Yeah, that was actually just a rented kit because we were outside. Like, no one knows what the weather is going to be that
Yeah.
day. So they rented a silent kit, which is similar to the one I have in the show. I have mesh heads on it because it's electronic. So they basically had mesh heads on it. And they called them video cymbals, which I've never used before. They looked like real cymbals, but if you hit them, they actually just sound like plastic. And they felt really weird too because they're a lot heavier than normal cymbals because we weren't actually playing live. Everything was pre-recorded for the parade. So like we recorded the audio in a studio like months ago. We recorded the stuff that we were going to play for the parade and the stuff that we were going to do for any other TV appearances like The View and Good Morning America. We pre-recorded all that stuff. And then they recorded the vocals. And then for the parade, we were basically just miming for the whole thing. So we had a click track. We had the track in our, again, we had to wear our in-ears. And I was like physically hitting the drums because nobody wants to see me air drumming. That would look a little ridiculous. But I was miming along to what I had already recorded previously.
Have you ever done something like that and forgot exactly what you played?
Well, the good thing about Six is that like I recorded exactly what I play in the show every night. So like I had a pretty good idea of all the little things that I do. But that has happened before, like at other like video shoot situations where I'm like playing along to somebody else's track or to my own track that I did months ago, and I'm like, what did I even play? So yeah, that's definitely happened.
What advice would you give to someone that's interested in doing what we do for a living? They want to play drums on Broadway. What advice would you give?
The first thing I would say is to reach out to people whose careers you look up to. So for me, that was reaching out to other drummers that are playing on Broadway. Go reach out to Broadway drummers or New York City gigging drummers and talk to them. See if they'd be willing to meet you for a cup of coffee or see if you can go shadow a show. And before you meet them, I would say do a little bit of research on that particular person so you have a little bit of context and things to ask about and things to talk about. So you're not just like, tell me everything. Just like show them that you actually care about who they are and about what they do, and then ask them about their experiences. And it's cool that, everybody has a different story and a different path. I feel like that's something that helped me grow as a musician just from meeting all different types of people. One person's story helped me with this part of my life, and another person's story helps me with this part of my life. You just never know what you're going to learn about people. One of the biggest pieces of advice is just go meet people and learn from them. Another thing I would say is, especially if you want to be a Broadway drummer, get comfy on as many styles as possible. On Broadway, there are shows that have many different styles just in one show. And you never know what you're going to get asked to sub for or you're going to get hired to play on. So if you went to school and only studied jazz, that's great. But if you want to play on Broadway, you're probably going to have to play a lot of other styles besides just jazz. So make sure you're familiar playing as many different things as possible. And I think you'll be more set up for success as a sub and as just as a player in general.
You use Yamaha drums, Sabian, Vic Firth, and Remo.
Yes.
These companies, did they come to you? Did you go to them?
I think for the most part, I went to them. I met a lot of them at NAM. I went to NAM a couple years ago in LA, and I got to meet some of the A&R people from companies that I was super interested in. We exchanged cards, we exchanged info, and I think for a lot of them, I had some mutual connections, which always helps. Some of my colleagues were able to introduce me to the A&R people from Yamaha, Vic Firth, and we got in touch and they offered me a deal, which is super exciting.
That's great.
Yeah.
What kind of things should a drummer never do in a Broadway pit?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good question. Something a drummer should never do in a Broadway pit. I would say never assume anything. No matter what show you're playing on, whether it's a tour, a Broadway show, whatever, don't assume anything. Always ask first. For example, don't ever assume that you're just allowed to go to the kid and practice and play whenever you want. Don't assume that you can just bring people into the pit to hang and watch or bring them up to your dressing room or whatever. Don't Also, never, as a sub, never change somebody's setup. Never mess with somebody's setup. That is like the worst thing you could possibly do. Larry Lelly taught me that. Not that I messed up his setup, but he taught me that that is something that is super important. And as a sub, you are expected to just go in and make it work. If anything, maybe you can adjust the height of the seat, which Eric Halverson, when he was at Waitress, he kindly let me adjust the seat slightly because he was a little bit taller than me. And I was like, if I sit this high, I really can't reach the pedals. So he kindly let me lower the seat, which a lot of people will do. But don't go around and like change cymbal heights, cymbal angles. Make sure you put the sticks and mallets back exactly where you found them. If the drummer wants you to put them on the snare drum when you're done versus in the stick bag versus on the stick table, whatever it is, make sure you know what they prefer and follow what they say. Leave everything exactly as you found it and just don't go messing with people's setups because that's not fun.
Has that happened to you?
No, luckily all of my subs are amazing and they leave everything exactly as I left it. I just remember there's one time where I was subbing for Cagney for Larry, and I think I left. There's like some little trap percussion in the show, like vibra-slap and a slide whistle and like all that fun stuff. I think I left the vibra-slap like in a different part of the table. Like I think it was still on the table, but it was like in a different section, something like that. And Larry called me and he was like, I'm not mad, but I just want to let you know, make sure you leave everything exactly as you found it. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. You're right. Like, I might have put the vibra slap like in the wrong part. Like, I don't remember exactly what happened, but he told me about that. And I've never made that mistake again.
You can tell when you come back and something is slightly different because
Yeah.
you're doing your show 8 times a week, and if the symbol is slightly changed, like you just
You
know.
know, totally. Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
So just yeah, don't mess with anyone's setup because it's not your setup. You're just there to sub and do a good job and like literally be that person for the night. You don't need to change anything.
Are you working on anything outside of six right now, musically or
Yeah.
anything else?
Yeah, so I like to keep busy and with whatever I can. Even though I'm playing for six, I'm still taking on other gigs, like whether it's a set at 54 Below or a recording session. People have asked me if I'm available for these things. I always say yes because I love to be involved in as many different things as I can and get some musical variety. I'm sure you know, after playing 8 shows a week, it's so fun and it's amazing. But also sometimes you're like, I kind of want to play other things too and make sure I can keep my chops up. So I just did a recording session at Pace University for some friends earlier this week. I also play in this group called the Broadway Symphonetta. It's an all female, majority women of color orchestra, which is so fun. And I did a lot of recording projects with them during the pandemic. So we played a really cool gala a few weeks ago, and I got to perform with Jordan Sparks and Brandy and Hillary. I'm totally blanking on her last name. The woman from Lady Antebellum, which is now Lady A, formerly known as Lady Antebellum. That was really fun. So I'm just trying to keep busy with all different types of gigs.
I'm gonna look her up.
I forgot what's her last name. Hillary.
Hold on.
Hillary Scott.
Scott. Okay. You're
Yeah,
working with Hillary Scott. Wow, that's great.
yeah, Hillary Scott of Lady A. No, it was just like, just a quick little gala thing, and we got to share the stage with them for like a couple songs, and it was super fun.
That's cool. That's cool. Where can people find you on social media?
So I am on Instagram and Facebook. I have not gotten to Twitter, and I don't think I ever will. So I'm sorry for those of you that are on Twitter. But I do have an Instagram. You can follow me at Chicks Can Drum 2 with the number 2, which I probably made back in high school and just never changed because it is just my full identity. So Chicks Can Drum 2.
Our time has come to an end, but it was great learning about you, and I wish you much success in your Broadway career, and I hope you do many more shows, and hope 6 runs for at least 6 years.
Thank you so much. Oh, I hope so too. I'd be so happy with 6 years. That'd
And
be
we will
great.
see each other in person on the Broadway campus sooner than later.
Yes, I hope so. I'd love to meet up in real life. That'd be great.
Thanks again for joining me, and I will talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Clayton. Thanks for having me.
All right, have a great
All
day.
right. Have a good day.